Welcome back to the Macro Golf YouTube channel. Special guest with us here today. We've got Rob from Eagle. So you've probably been seeing me wearing this stuff for a long time now. This is the man behind the magic. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to look at Rob as a single figure golfer and see what we can do to try and find ways to help his game. So we're here with Rob. Rob, welcome. Thanks for coming on the channel.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to just let the guys know a little bit about yourself, what you do, the business, little bits before we get cracking today?
Yeah, so basically I run and do pretty much everything within Eagle Apparel Golf. So we started the business back in 2021, I believe. No, 2020. 2020 it was.
4 years, wow.
Coming up 5 years. And we basically design, develop and manufacture full range of golf clothing here in the UK. You can find it all online, eagleapparelgolf.co.uk. So that's me in a nutshell and what we do.
Enough about you. Let's get cracking now. I'll stick all the links to Rob's amazing work down below. Follow all of his socials, and I'll stick a discount code as well if you want to get yourself some Eagle Apparel gear as well. So today what we're looking at was looking at you as a golfer and how your body moves. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through some assessments to try and see if there's anything going on in your body, any weaknesses, restrictions, lack of mobility, or anything that might be holding you back from playing your best golf. So where's the golf currently, and where do we want to take this to? What's the journey that we're on at the moment? Just to get a bit of an idea for the guys as well.
So I'm currently handicap kind of 2.6 or something around there. And a couple of years ago I was down at kind of just shy of scratch, 0.6. But obviously playing a lot, had other commitment, or didn't have other commitments that I do now in terms of kids and all sorts of that. Obviously business takes over a lot of time, so not able to quite practice as much as I would like over the last 2 years, but just trying to rectify that a bit now. So back practicing a couple of times a week, back trying to play at least once, twice a week. Whereas the last year it's been, I think I've played, the amount of golf I've played is probably could count on one hand kind of thing. So just trying to get the game back, doing a little bit of swing work with Liam Robinson, one of our other ambassadors. That's kind of where we're at the moment. Fitness wise, just in the gym, not doing anything golf specific. There's any kind of leakages or anything like that we can find today will be definitely helpful. Good.
And what we're going to do is you guys might have seen some of the other videos I've done when I've gone through some of these assessments and shown you how to test some stuff. So today we're actually going to use a live model to do that, and we'll actually see some of the tests we're going to do. First thing we do is have a little look at the golf swing. You can talk us through what you're trying to work on at the moment, what you're doing with Liam, some moves that you're trying to work on. Then we'll get some data from that. We'll see how much you're rotating, how much you're moving, and we'll get a kind of a physical measure of that. Then we'll dig a little bit deeper into your body. We'll do some mobility tests, see how we're going on. We'll do some stability tests, and then we'll tie all of that up by basically putting a blueprint together of you and your body at the moment, and then we'll talk about what we can do moving forward to improve those areas.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Let's have a look at the golf swing.
Nice one.
So Rob, if you want to just take a couple of swings, get yourself feeling a little bit warm. I know it feels weird swinging in the studio. It's always a little bit odd, but it's really good for me to see what it's like when you're feeling a little bit stiff, and then what happens when you get a little bit loose as well. So feel free to talk us through what you're currently working on, talk through what you're feeling at the moment, anything that you feel in the body, anything that's going on. Just talk free, swing free, and let's see where we are at the moment.
Cool. So a couple of things that I'm working on at the moment with obviously Liam's guidance is, if anybody's seen his kind of coaching style, it's all about kind of body movement, letting the club travel, pulling your body into certain positions rather than manufacturing positions through twisting and turning. So what the main drill that he's kind of got me doing at the moment is getting kind of this way off the ball and trying to get this shoulder back over that foot, but maintaining obviously a stable base underneath. We don't want to be swaying this way, but it's more your upper body kind of get off the ball. And then from there, you obviously have all this space to move back into to generate your power. So then it's kind of like a move which I don't think about in my golf swing. This kind of happens naturally for me, but in my practice swing, you'll see me do it where I kind of lean with the upper body here, and then it's just a release and a brace in this side within the golf swing. So try and release the golf club down, leave all the energy basically at the ball, and then keep connected, embrace kind of the stopping power, I guess, in the lead side. So that's why you see us doing a lot of towel smashing and stuff like that. He's trying to brace that lead side. So my biggest kind of flaw, or what I do poorly when I'm swinging at my worst, which is one thing, I kind of go too much tilt this way. So one thing is trying to obviously stay tall within the backswing, and then make sure that weight comes off and loaded in this right side, so then you can move back in, and everything from there really happens naturally. So the biggest thing for me is to get this move off, but stay nice and tall, and then from there it's just about releasing the golf club and leaving all the energy there rather than letting my arms flail this way. So it's a bit of step off, down in, and then release the golf club this way.
And do you feel like, obviously you used to play cricket, for those that didn't know, you were a good cricketer. Do you feel like there's any traits that still stick in from cricket, and is that something you have to fight against? Is there some work you're doing here that fights against those tendencies as well?
Yeah, massively. I think cricket seems a long time ago, although I started playing a little bit again this year, out of nowhere really, but I'm definitely better at understanding or separating the two now, but certainly when I was just started playing golf, you know, cricket's a lot about straight back, straight through, with obviously using this hinge here and kind of going this way, kind of trying to keep straight lines, whereas obviously golf is played in an arc. It's like total opposite. So, you know, if we're trying to do this in a golf swing, you're going to leave the club face open, you know, swing the wrong way.
Yep.
Whereas, yeah, kind of with the swing, it's definitely more kind of rotational. But I think, you know, it's people have different ways of interpret rotation, but we definitely swing on an arc within golf, whereas within cricket, it's definitely more kind of lateral based in terms of thinking about straight lines. So yeah, people think cricketers should be good golfers, but it's a totally different, totally different technique.
I can imagine. Just have a couple of swings for me, and then I'm going to get a couple of videos and see if we can get some numbers.
I feel weird swinging out the ball.
Yeah, just take your time, get yourself in. Okay, so we've stuck your swing into sport box. You can see here. So first things first, this was what we deemed as one of the good ones, like one of the better swings. And there's a few things we're going to look at as we work through on this. So first thing we're going to look at is how much rotation are we getting through the swing. So we can look through pelvis turn, and we can see how much we've got at the top. And you'd say that, you know, anything green here is in the PGA Tour average. So we're definitely getting enough hip rotation on the backswing, which is great. In terms of chest turn, when we get to the top, we've got actually more than what we would deem as a normal amount of chest turn on tour. So that, for a lot of people, could be a good thing, could show that we're getting a lot of turn. Might also be something to consider if we're then starting to move too much off of the ball. So you did mention that one of the things you're trying to do is get kind of working back away from the target and start to get a little bit more lateral movement. So when we look at that and we work through onto chest sway, we can see that you are actually moving 3 inches off on the way back, which is something you're trying to do. So not always, when these numbers are red, it doesn't always necessarily mean a bad thing. It just means that we're trying to get some confirmation for your matchup, right? So Liam's trying to get you to move more that way, and you're doing it. So for him, he'd probably be quite happy to see that, right? Yeah. So we're always trying to see, what we generally want is, if we are moving a lot, then does that match to what we're trying to achieve in the work that we're doing, right? Yeah. In terms of pelvis sway, again, doesn't move as much, which again is not something you're not necessarily worrying too much about moving the hips that way. No. In fact, that was something you said you didn't want too much of, right? No. So you wanted to load, but you didn't want, you know, to be moving miles away off of it, on especially with the hips. So in terms of what I would say is the benchmark here, looks like we're moving pretty well, and we're definitely trying to match up what Liam's trying to get us to do in terms of in the swing. Yeah. Okay? So what we'll now do is we'll now see, okay, is there anything going on shoulder-wise, anything neck-wise, anything hip-wise or torso-wise that might be making this a little bit harder for you? Yeah. And then is there anything that's going to be basically making these movements less frequent when we start to get a little bit tired or start to get a bit more fatigued? Yeah. Okay. So do you know, obviously some of these things there, they might be going too much, but you know, could that be something stability-wise that a muscles maybe weak, that's then taking that weight too far and then therefore lose some control? Yeah, definitely. So what we'll do is we'll have a look of mobility, and then we'll also look at stability, and we'll see how those match up for you. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll do a couple of tests in terms of rotation and lower half stability to see if there's any reason why for you moving off but creates a better move. Because it might be that for now is getting you into a good position, but it might be that something that then gets exaggerated too much and might start causing you issues. So we'll check all of that, and then hopefully by the time we finish these tests, we'll have a bit more of an idea of why that's a good move for you. Cool. Okay, so Rob's done the hard work of swinging, now we can relax and chill out, and I'm going to move him around. So a couple of things we're going to look at for here is some big areas for Rob in his golf swing are hip rotation and torso rotation, right? They're two big areas for us. But also the loading through the shoulder is really, really important for you to be able to keep things working on plane and not get too steep, right? So these are the things we've always spoken about for you. So we're going to do some tests to see what movement Rob has currently in terms of rotation across the hip. And we're also going to have a little look at the shoulders. We're going to look at the torso rotation as well. So you can just chill out, Rob, right? I'm just going to move you. So one of the first tests we're going to do is have a little look at Rob's rotation from the hip. So one of the ways I like to do this in the studio, and I'll show you another way that you can do this from home, and I'll tag the video for this. We just bring the hip in line, and then all we're looking to do is just work this leg out. So this is obviously Rob's lead side as a left-handed golfer, and we're just trying to see how much movement he has in his internal rotation on his hip. And you can probably see here that this movement is not much, right? There's not a lot. So here in lead side and trail side, working externally, so ankle working outside the knee, we'd want at least 45 degrees, okay? So we're a little bit shy of 45 degrees at the moment. I know you have had a 2.5 hour drive here, so we're probably a little bit stiff, but he's probably not going to like me very much if I start poking around in here as well. And what we find is muscles up on the top of the hip here, working on the outside of the hip, one in particular called our TFL, which once I get my thumb into it, you might see a little bit of a change in his face as he starts to move. But what you'll find is just a little bit of massage into this area as I work the knee around can quite quickly get a quick bit of release. So what would be interested for here for Rob, for example, is as he comes through impact, one thing we saw is that he's trying to really work the lower half through hard, okay? So one thing that's going to help us is him being able to have a little bit more movement in this lead side is going to make it a little bit easier for you to clear the hips, okay? And we'll definitely get a little bit less stalling through impact. I'm not sure if that's something you suffer with at all or not, but this is definitely going to make it easier for you to clear these hips all the way around. So I'm just rubbing through on this TFL, just moving around a little bit. And then we might already see, hopefully we'll see this on the camera, that we've already gained about 10, 15 degrees just in that side, right? So it just shows there that there's not necessarily a deep mobility issue. Sometimes just a little bit of stiffness through that hip, right? You've had a long drive, you've got different bits. That's why just sometimes loosening things up and just stretching a little bit will help. So now what we can do is have a little look at Rob's, so this is our kind of external rotation into abduction. It's called a Faber test. So with one ankle just on top of the knee, we're just going to let him drop this out. And really I'm just interested in how much range he has, trying to get this knee back down to the bed. Pretty good. And then we'll see on the other side if he repeats that. And we're basically just looking for any big difference from left to right. So immediately we can see left side just a little bit stiffer there. You can probably see that on the camera here. Do you feel that, Rob? Do you feel that this left side was just a little bit stiffer on the inside?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's test the left side on the external. Just get knee in the same position. Just working it this way. So he's got a little bit more range on this left side than he has right. And we saw that he was able to load this hip pretty well, so I would have been surprised if this was completely blocked up. But I think a little bit of extra range here is really going to help him. I can feel this resistance here as well, so I can feel that this is definitely a little bit of like stiffness rather than it is a lack of mobility. So we'll be able to free that up pretty quickly.
Played yesterday as well.
And he played yesterday as well. Yeah, there you go. And you've probably been training hard and he's probably been doing all this stuff. Good work. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a seat on the bed and you're going to turn and face this camera over here and face the mirror over that way. Good work. I'm going to grab a alignment stick. So you're going to place this across the back of your shoulders for me. Good, and keeping the knees nicely tucked in. So knees nicely tucked together. Good, just a little bit lower with this now for me. Good. Keeping those knees tucked in. Now we're just going to rotate the torso around to the right. Try and keep those hips nice and stable for me. Good. So again with this test, we're interested, does he have at least 45 degrees of rotation to the right and round to the left? So if you now come round to the left with us, Rob. And we're also interested in any variance from left to right as well. What do you feel? Would you do that?
Yeah, I feel pretty tight, this side especially, through my kind of lat.
So what's interesting for us with Rob as a left-handed golfer, we'll see the opposite to what we see right-handed golfers. Obviously, typically right-handed golfers would be able to rotate more to their right than they can to their left. As backswing, normally it has a little bit more range in the downswing. So for you, rotating to the left feels a little bit easier as well. That makes sense, where we can rotate better to our trail side. But against this lead side, just as you do a few, we're starting to just loosen up. And again, we can start to see this a little bit of stiffness. And actually one thing I'm going to get to do now, if you turn, good. And now feel like you can tilt and open this up, open this ribcage up, tilt, 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 tilt. Good, and then come back to center, and then rotate a little bit further. Good, and then tilt, 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 tilt. Good, and then back to center. One more time, turn. There we go, already starting to see more range. Yeah. Tilt, 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 tilt. Good. Back to center. One more. Turn, 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 turn. Suddenly we can already see how much more range he's got. Tilt, 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 tilt. And back to center. And then just repeat that test for me. Around we go. So we've got more range. So what we can start to see is this definitely for Rob is more of a stiffness problem than it is necessarily a lack of mobility. It's going to take, you know, loads and loads of time for you to regain, right? So now he's probably feel stiff to this side and you're going to run and release this side, right? So this is always important, the state that we're in. So if you think about pre-golf warm-up, getting to the driving range really early in the day, going to golf course when it's freezing cold, we're always going to feel a little bit stiff, but we're always going to loosen up as we go, right? So that's why things like warm-up's going to be really helpful, but also some work that's just going to help the body go through, and maybe some self-massage work is really going to help Rob out. Okay, so we'll have a little look at shoulders next. So if you want to lay yourself back down, Rob.
On back?
Yeah, on your back. This will be good. So shoulders, we've got a couple of different ranges that we're interested in. I'll do this arm so you guys can feel the camera. So we're going to take one arm up. I'm just going to try and loosen him off here, and then I'm just going to see how much range he has to go up and over his head. Rob's in a really good position up and overhead there, and then same on this side. Up and overhead, all really good. And then the next one I'm going to do is just see how much rotation we've got. So I'm trying to show you on here. So you just bend the elbow, good. And then just trying to keep this elbow in line. We're seeing how much open position we've got. And Rob's got really, really good range. And in fact, if I now get to just push on his hand slightly for me, he's also really good strength in that range. And we'll check the right side. Arm opens up, elbow bends, open up, good. And then just push against my hand here. Beautiful. So really good shoulder range for Rob. No issues at all going on the upper half. Okay, so we've had a little look at Rob's mobility, and we saw there's a bit of a restriction in your right hip internally rotating. Okay, so we'll have a little look at that when we look at your programming, and also a little bit of a restriction in the left hip on the inside. Okay, so for you as a left-handed golfer, the opposite to a right-handed golfer, we would see that would be kind of like lead side being a little bit stiff on the way through, and also the inside of the trail side. So it's quite common to have that on that way round, right? Yeah. But torso is kind of a little bit stiff, but freed up quite quickly, and the shoulders are moving really, really well. Okay, so nothing drastically to worry about on the main mobility areas of the three rotational areas. Okay, what we'll now look at is the question you asked me earlier, was a little bit of stability. So let's see how we are on a single leg stability. And then we'll also do a deep squat test as well to see if there's any imbalances from left to right side in terms of how you stabilize and how you balance, okay? So the first thing I'm gonna get you to do, and bear with me because I trained legs yesterday and my legs are stiff. So we're gonna come next to the step, 1 foot next to it, one knee up. What we're then gonna do is push the hands out. We're gonna touch the knee to the step and then stand back up. Okay? Yeah. Give that a go for me. So 1 foot next to the step, good. We're gonna bend the knee, nice and upright for the torso, hands work out. We're gonna bend down.
Oi.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Try again. What does that feel like?
Feels good until about an inch down, and I just can't quite get.
So a little bit of a depth problem potentially. Better. One more. Good. So you can see that as Rob gets a little bit lower, we start to lose a little bit of stability, right? So this is what we start to see, that you start to compromise stability to gain more mobility, right? So these things always work hand in hand. So ideally, we want a good mix of mobility and stability. Okay, so sometimes what happens is when we don't have mobility, we sacrifice stability to continue this range of motion. One of the questions you asked me earlier, is there a reason why we start to move one way or move the other way and have to work more laterally? Maybe a little bit of stiffness means that we have to sacrifice a little bit of that stability, and that works better for you because it means you can move a little bit freer. Yeah. But it doesn't always mean that we're moving things in the right way. So we definitely know that there's something going on there that's restricting us to be able to get down to this mode. Let's have a look at the other side. So also we know the left side, we're a little bit tight across the inside of the thigh. Let's see how we're getting on this other side.
I've had a bit of pain in this knee, to be fair. So it'll be interesting.
A little bit of a depth issue again?
Depth issue again, yeah. Yeah.
A little bit more stable that side? Or
a little bit more stable. My left foot is similar, I think.
Okay, so definitely a little bit of a depth issue, so potentially some mobility. We'll have a little look at that in a second in terms of the calves. But what we're doing is we're sacrificing a little bit of that mobility to a little bit of stability to gain movement, right? Okay, so we've had a little look at single leg stuff. Let's have a little look when we put the system together and work it as one, okay? So I'm gonna get you to come side on to the mirror, if that's okay. And then I'm gonna get you to have the feet square, so nice and square for the feet. You can go a little bit wider with the feet if that feels more comfortable, that's absolutely fine. We're going to go hands up by the ears. And then from here, what I'm going to get you to do is drop down into as deep a squat as you can, keeping the heels on the ground and hold that bottom position.
Feet straight.
Yeah. And come back up for me there. And what would happen if I told you had to get lower? How would we get a little bit lower than that?
I'd want to splay my feet out first.
I know you would.
I'd try and open my knees out.
How's that feel?
And breathe, maybe.
Good. So I'm going to come around and have a little look from the other side. One more time for me. Up we go. And down we come. Okay, so you can probably see on the camera, and I can see from here, that what happens, Rob, for him to gain more depth, similar to when we spoke about having a slight lack of mobility, what happens if we start to lose stability? If Rob comes back down again, we'll keep a little eye on this lower part of his back. So what happens is when he wants to gain more range, he sacrifices some stability in the lower part of the spine here to get this hip dropping down, and we get this little kind of tuck under of the pelvis. So if I get Rob to come back up, I really want you to don't lose stability through here. So get this sticking out a little bit more, keep a little more stability, stick the bum out a little bit more. There you go, and keep that, don't lose it. Go for it. He's definitely going to run out of range about there. We can start to see it drop, and he tried to keep that up there. So what's interesting here is we can see that there's definitely a little bit of a range in deep hip flexion. Okay, so trying to get the knee up in line, up towards the shoulder. But I'm also very interested in his calves as well to see what's going on. And the reason why it's so interesting for you, Rob, is this being completely honest with this, can make zero difference to your golf, but it's definitely going to make a big difference to your weight training. Right? So any movements you're doing in the gym, if you're, for example, doing any squats or doing any lunges or doing any deadlifts, this is definitely going to put extra strain on areas. And when we think of someone who's trying to get back down to the level they've played their best golf at, we definitely can't be picking up any injuries in the gym. We definitely can't be picking up any injuries from anything else we're doing. So we need to make sure the whole body is prepared, ready for the amount of training and amount of practice you're going to do. Okay, so we'll do one last check on the calves, just to make sure the calves are okay. And then we'll move on to a final stability test. Okay. So we're just going to test Rob's ankle mobility into the calf. So we've got this nice setup here with the box. We've got the pads, which is around 4 inches away from the box. And we're just making sure that you can touch. Let me spin that, Rob. Just making sure that you can touch knee to box, keeping that ankle to the ground. So we're just a tiny bit short of that, probably on that left side. Yeah. And then let's try the other side.
A bit more.
And a little bit more shy on that right side. So definitely a little bit tight in ankle mobility. Something we might need to consider if he was to do anything like back squats or anything like front-loaded squats or anything that's going to be requiring deep hip flexion with ankle mobility. Yeah. We just need to be a little bit aware of that. So probably until we start to fix those hip issues, we need to come up with some adjustment into your weight training to make sure that we're not putting extra stress to other areas. Cool. Okay, final test we're going to do. We have a little bit more of a check on stability, but mostly on glute function, to see how well these glutes are firing, right? So we know with Liam's coaching, it's a very athletic move. We need all these body parts to be firing for you to get the most out of that, okay? So we're just going to check the glute strength by doing this single leg glute bridge test. So feet tucked up into a good position, very nice. We're going to have hands up to the sky. We're then going to push the feet into the ground, lift the hips up. So hands up to the sky for us, Rob.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. So hips up, hips up, hips up. Good. And then all we're going to do from this position is now we're going to straighten one leg and hold this position. I'm just going to hold Rob here for a second. I'm asking a couple of questions. So one, where do we feel like most of the work is being done?
Where?
Yeah, what part of the body?
Definitely right glute and hamstring.
Good. So can we start to disengage that hamstring a little bit and get that glute to work a little bit harder? Do you have the ability to kind of disassociate those two areas?
Yeah, I think there.
Good. Let's try the other side. So what we're interested in here is if the glute's not working very well, we'll definitely dump this into the lower back and into the hamstring. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things we're trying to find out is the glute your default? Right? Yeah. So there we had a little bit of hamstring, which tells us that glute might not be firing on all cylinders. Yeah. Right? Let's have a little check on this left side. So I'm interested in this left side for sure. Up we go. That immediately looks a little bit more stable.
Yeah. Less hamstring as well.
Less hamstring. So when we link that back to the test that we saw before, we knew that the front of that right hip was a little bit tighter, where I was massaging into. The glute is the opposite side to that. Yeah. So the tightness on the front of this hip will cause the glute not to work very well. Okay. So left side moved a lot better, glutes functioning a lot better. Right side, we see glutes started to be a little bit weakened and front of the hip a little bit tighter. Take a little rest. So we're just going to do a quick summary for you, Rob, of what we've seen today. So obviously in the golf swing, we're really trying to work athletically. We're trying to work off the ball, work back and try and use all of these good forces that we're trying to execute, okay? When we then look to how you're moving, you're kind of ticking some boxes on what you're trying to do, all right? This is obviously a bit of a different scenario. You're not on the golf course, you're not hitting a normal shot. So we'd expect some of those moves to be a little bit more exaggerated, that move to be a little bit more than it might be on the golf course, which is kind of what we saw, right? When we then looked at some mobility, we definitely saw some restriction across the front of the right hip in terms of being able to internally rotate. So for you, that's going to be your lead side rotating into the lead side. So that's definitely something worth considering for us.
Yeah.
Also, when you do a step drill, you can kind of get away with not having as much there because you can just step that foot a little bit more open.
Yeah.
And that requires less internal rotation on that lead side. So it's definitely something for us to consider, that maybe this lead side just being turned out a little bit for you at the moment is going to benefit you being able to rotate the hip through impact and through the downswing. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to do some work to improve that, but at the moment, let's work with what we've got. Okay. A little bit tight on the inside of the left thigh. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that as a left-handed golfer, that left side is going to be worked quite a lot through the trail side. And then torso, we noticed a little bit of stiffness, but we freed that up pretty quick with nothing we're really too worried about, okay? Shoulders were moving really well. When we then started to look at stability, we started to identify a few more things that might be of interest. So definitely a little bit of a lack of depth on our being able to squat low, okay? Some of that is coming from ankle mobility, some of that is coming from deep hip mobility and hip flexion. And therefore, we sacrifice a little bit of stability through the lower back and through the knee to be able to get that extra depth. So it's just something for us to consider probably more in our training than it is for our golf, okay? So in terms of recommendations for you moving away, I would definitely work on hip internal rotation.
Yeah.
We'll do left side and right side, but right side is definitely going to be more important for you. I would definitely free up the inside of this left thigh because that's going to be potentially starting to pull on the knee or pull on the groin. That's definitely something we want to avoid. And then I think we just need to make sure that we're including some kind of single leg work in our weight training. And for now, just avoiding any kind of like real deep, heavy back squats until we sort out this spinal kind of stability side.
Yeah, cool.
Any questions? Anything you think we haven't covered?
No, I think that's good. I think definitely kind of, there's no kind of like urgent things or like major things, but a lot of things, like little things, do make sense in terms of what we maybe see on the golf swing or other areas that we're seeing in the gym. So yeah, having some kind of like background on that's going to help moving forward. So yeah, thank you very much.
For sure. And what we can also do is we can give all this information to Liam as well, and that's going to help him be able to see why you might be moving in certain ways as well. So we can link this all the way back to the golf swing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's the kind of thing that's good now. You know, with coaches and with the TPI stuff and everything like that, the whole kind of sector being a little bit more in unison, you can work with coaches and vice versa to say, I want to try and get this person in this position or that position. Can you do these tests to see if they physically can? And then therefore you can kind of work together or as a three to kind of, you know, for one unison goal. So yeah, no, thanks very much. It makes a lot of sense, and look forward to seeing some improvements.
Me too. Guys, thanks for checking this video out. Hope you like this video. It does us a big favor if you can send this video to someone you think might find it interesting. Hit the like button as well. Make sure you go and follow Eagle TV. Putting loads of really, really good content out on their channel as well. So I'll tag that below. Make sure you subscribe to both channels, and we'll see you on the next video.
Cheers, guys.